Well, well, well. Good evening once again. You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. I want to recap a little bit what we went over last night so that it'll be fresh in your minds when we open the phone, because we're going to open the phones and talk about it tonight. We gave you the smoking gun, the truth about what really happened with John F. Kennedy last night. Took a long time. I told you a long time ago. You kept calling me up and asking me, what do you think really happened to John F. Kennedy, Jr.? I told you I didn't know, but we're investigating. When we finish our investigation, we'll let you know. I think some of you didn't believe me. I never tell you anything that's not true, ever. I may make a mistake once in a while, but I never, ever lie to you. Never. And you can take that to the bank. It's the truth. We've been investigating this for a long time. Here's what you heard on the tape. You heard on the tape that they didn't have a clue as to what happened to John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Jr. and his two passengers in his little light aircraft. In fact, somebody had intentionally planted a bogus beacon, which is the device on airplanes or ships that goes off and begins transmitting an SOS to say, help, help, we're here, here we are, listen to this beacon, home in on it, come and get the survivors. It's just like a beep, 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 beep. It has a specific frequency and a specific signal that it transmits, and everybody who hears it knows that somebody's in trouble. Somebody intentionally planted a fake, not a fake because it was a real beacon, but a deception beacon off Montauk Point. And that's where they were concentrating the search. Wherever you hear a beacon, a distress beacon, there's got to be a downed plane or a sunken ship or something. But there was nothing, because it was a deception. They say that John F. Kennedy never spoke to anybody on the radio. I've been talking to pilots all my life, literally all my life. I was reared in an Air Force family. I've known pilots since the very first memory that I can remember. And I still know a lot of pilots. I don't know any pilots who take off from one place and go to another place without talking to somebody on the radio along the way. They told us that John F. Kennedy, after he took off, never spoke to anybody on the radio, never called anybody. If you were listening to the tape very carefully last night, you heard them say that he was in communication with an Air Force tower. And they told us that he never called his destination, which was Martha's Vineyard Airport. That was a lie. They said they had miles and miles of radar tapes, but they didn't know where to start looking for his plane or which plane on the tapes was his. I didn't even know how to determine that, because there's so many small planes in the air, and they're not identified on radar. See, they squawk something called 1200, which is sort of a generic identifier. It means friendly, but nobody can tell who it is unless you call the radio and say, this is me. You have me on radar. I'm 14 miles from this place and 27 miles from that place, and I'm at such and such altitude. And then the guy says, oh, yeah, we got you right here. But if you're not in the air, you're in the water, and you can't talk on the radio, they can't tell which one of those radar blips is your blip. And they had no idea where to search or where to look. They were looking everywhere until they discovered, by talking to the personnel who had been at work that night at the tower at Martha's Vineyard Airport, that John F. Kennedy had indeed called in when he was 10 miles from the land of Martha's Vineyard on his final approach, 19 actual miles from the airport at 2,500 feet. That's 2,500 feet. beginning his descent on his glide path to the airport. Now, in a small plane traveling 150 miles an hour, he was 7 minutes from landing. He was 19 miles from the airport. In a small plane, doing 150 miles an hour, it only takes him 7 minutes to get there. Now, in his glide path, getting ready to land, he would have started slowing down at some point, so it actually would have maybe taken him 8 or 9 minutes to get there. But just so you understand that 19 miles away in a small plane going 150 miles an hour is not a long way away, nor does it take very long to get there. So he was about maximum. Even if you stretch things, he was only 10 minutes from touchdown. 10 minutes from the time his wheels would have hit the runway at Martha's Vineyard when he called in. 2,500 feet, doing 150 miles an hour, on his final approach to the airport. That means he was lined up with the runway.
Finally this noon, at a time when a sense of sadness has set in over the death of JFK Jr., the time may be right to remember his sense of humor. CNN's Jeannie Mose reports.
The kid who once entertained the grown-ups by wearing a basket on his head never let his fame go to his head, handling all the attention with a pinch of humor, whether it be by reaching to pinch his wife or by starting a speech with a quip.
It's difficult to stand before you fully clothed and compete for your attention with 7 people in their underwear. We'll do our best.
But even scantily clad models on a jockey underwear billboard were no competition for the hunk. No son of a president can be accused of taking himself too seriously when he poses semi-nude in his own magazine. Even when JFK Jr. failed the bar exam twice, his sense of humor never failed him.
Clearly not a measure of legal genius.
Who needs genius when you've got those Kennedy genes? During a rare late-night talk show appearance, JFK and Jerry Seinfeld chatted about a Seinfeld episode in which an actor played John. The next day, when the real JFK Jr. arrived in court as an assistant district attorney,
The defendant is sitting there over there, and he goes, "You were on Seinfeld." and I was like, no, I wasn't on Seinfeld. And he leans over to his lawyer, and he goes, "Guy's an actor, too. No wonder he failed the bar exam."
John always seemed bemused by the ruckus he caused, even warning a relentless photographer following him on a bike not to fall.
Don't fall.
What?
Don't fall.
I won't. JFK was dogged by photographers even while playing with dogs as a kid. As an adult, John once dyed his dog orange. This dog, a service that specializes in food coloring pets, says John brought his dog here to have him dyed orange for a Halloween party. Ever playful?
I'm jealous to my wife.
JFK's humor was wry, dry, and droll.
There is one other wedding dress in the world exactly like my wife Carolyn's, and I believe it's owned by Dennis Rodman.
Actually, Dennis's dress had a much more modest neckline. JFK was both modest and self-deprecating. Could he see himself in elective office?
Yeah, I mean, I can see myself lying on a beach in a hammock. So I could see myself in elective office, too.
And what would JFK say about the hoopla over his demise?
Slow news day, I guess, huh?
Jeannie Mose, CNN, New York.
He always did have a great sense of humor,
Yes,
so...